Thank you, James. We have questions, probably more than we can handle in 5 minutes time, but we'll try to address some of them. So you should see the questions now. I'll start here with the first one. James, you see a demand for continuous monitoring of all these values that you have presented, and according to which values would you recommend to realize a demand-controlled ventilation?
Oh, that's I suppose I would say, yeah, there's, I suppose, two parts to that. So yes, I think there is a demand for continuous monitoring. I think there's obviously a trade-off in this regard of what we do actually prioritize. I think in classroom environments, CO2 is probably typically a better metric because we don't have, we say, the same indoor sources. And again, there are exceptions to this, but I suppose unlike residential, where there's a lot more combustion activities, we don't see the same PM events indoors. So I think if we're considering ventilation in schools, I think we need a combination of ventilation to reduce the influences of indoor generated sources, but I think we need to be conscious then of the infiltration of outdoor sources. So if we're looking at trying to reduce PM, we probably need elements of filtration to try and reduce that.
Great, thank you. Then there are some methodological questions here. Have you characterized the air exchange rate in the rooms? Have you monitored the opening of doors and windows? Have you noted the material used in the furniture, etc.? Can you give some background?
So one of the simple, I think we have looked at the air exchange rate data. I didn't present it here because, again, we couldn't really present a whole webinar and some of that. Some of that has been analysed, but we haven't included it in the first paper just because I suppose the range of other pollutants that was included. But we have some of that, and we'd be happy to kind of engage in that conversation. We didn't, I think typically from windows and doors, we relied on occupant responses to fully characterize them. Typically internal doors were closed, I suppose generally, and it's been reported more from a noise issue and engaging with the rest of the school. The windows did open and close at various stages, and I think we were assuming that this was more strongly linked with the outdoor temperature rather than the indoor temperature, which we assumed was kind of more linked with thermal comfort.
Materials, you have information on material use and how they influence the VOC concentrations, but in fact you already showed that this was more related to, for instance, cleaning events.
So yeah, I think we put the limiting down to some of the cleaning and the disinfection products, given that the discrepancy, the higher events in classrooms, and I suppose we speculated, and I have to say it is speculation. We didn't have pre-COVID data. We don't know if this is kind of in some ways as a consequence of COVID, where disinfections in classrooms and schools typically had an increase over COVID. So we don't know if that's a follow-on in those environments. But we did associate some of it with the cleaning products in the schools. Off the top of my head, I don't have information on the materials in the schools myself, but if you want to reach out to me, I can check with Adam and we might be able to have some of those information. I just don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay, maybe one final question before we go for the next presenter. Is the air quality the same in all locations? I assume this refers to outdoor air quality.
Yeah, no. So I suppose there was significant variability in the outdoor concentrations, and that's where, when we actually looked at the PM data, we tried to normalize it across the indoor to outdoor data, and that's what the outdoor data was coming from the nearby EPA monitoring sites. So I suppose some of it was more linked. The offices, we definitely found more of an influence of traffic because they just seemed to be near busier roads. The schools, more actually, we noticed the influence of nighttime concentrations more so. But we could see, when we looked at the hourly concentrations, we could see the influence at each location. I suppose just noticed there, the last one was all the schools we presented here just were all naturally ventilated. And so all the pre-data at the schools were all natural ventilation. Post retrofit, that has changed, but everything I presented was just naturally ventilated schools.